This month, our focus is Wisdom Walk. That's the theme for the month, and we've been looking at different faith traditions of the world to borrow from them practices that we might incorporate into our own faith tradition. We started with Islam at the beginning of the month and talked about the practice of surrendering to prayer 5 times a day in our own style, and many people have written to me and told me about the impact of doing that practice, what it's had, what richness it's brought to them. The second week we talked about going with the flow, Taoism. This Reverend Kim Kaiser, and his message is online on our website. It's amazing. It's like going to school and learning. It's really beautiful. The third week we talked about Christianity and the specific teachings of Jesus of Nazareth that relate to forgiveness. And then this week, through the filter of Judaism, I'm so excited. You know, I've been waiting a long time for this to happen. We have to talk to us about Judaism, Rabbi George Gittleman, my friend, and I call him my rabbi, my teacher. And let me tell you what his own community website says about him. Rabbi George Gittleman joined Shomrei Torah as the first full-time rabbi in 1996. And that community has been blessed and strengthened by his leadership, teaching, and community worship. In his own words, welcoming all kinds of people into our diverse community is at the core of our mission and my vision for a liberal Jewish future in Sonoma County. Well, that might as well have been our vision statement. And so I'm so glad to welcome him. Will you help me welcome Rabbi George Gittleman?
It's great to be here, and I love your Reverend Edward. Let's have it for... The music is also amazing. I'm stealing your musicians. So, Edward and I thought it might be nice, since we're here for the New Year every year and for the Day of Atonement, this holy of holy time for us, we thought it might be nice to give you a little taste of what the New Year, Rosh Hashanah, means to us. So that's why we call this New Year Now. So you have to imagine either that this is December 30th or you're Jewish and your New Year is 3 weeks away. I'll begin with a personal story from my past. Before I became a rabbi, rock climbing was my religion. It really was. I lived in San Francisco. I'm 52, so in my 20s I lived in San Francisco, and every weekend I'd hop in my yellow VW bus with black paisley curtains, true story, and drive to Yosemite and meet my climbing community along the way. My bus was the only bus that never broke down because I didn't have tools in my bus. It's true. And we'd go, I took leaves of absence from work, and I would live in Yosemite, and I've actually climbed all over the world. And this is a story from that time in my life, 25 years ago. Could have actually been this Sunday, and it was in Tuolumne Meadows in Yosemite. So some of you have been there. It's about 9,000 feet, high Sierras really, and it's beautiful. These big granite domes, lots of rock climbing, and really fickle weather. It can be, summer at one time, and then 5 minutes later, boom, it can be snowing. So we were in Yosemite at Tuolumne Meadows, me and my partner, Tom, and we got up early, 5 a.m., to shoulder our gear and get to the base of this climb so we would be the only people on the climb, or at least the first group on the climb. It was awesome to behold, beautiful crack system, a vertical crack going up about 500 feet into a roof, an overhang. And then you could see if you then moved 75 feet under the overhang, traversed, there was another break in the overhang and you could actually climb over, and that was the crux of the climb. Beautiful morning, where we want to be. And Tom went first, and we made the first 500 feet without any issues, and we got up under this roof, this big overhanging rock system, and I'll admit I was a little frightened by that. And then Tom, he was the better climber, and he led the traverse. And traverses might seem less scary than just going straight up, but actually the fall is pretty frightening because you swing. And if you swing, you sometimes scrape, and then, of course, sometimes you get impaled because rock faces aren't just sheer, there's things protruding. So Tom went first. He made the traverse, he made the overhang, and he got to the end of that part of the climb. And it looked great. I was excited. And I followed after him. No problem, actually. And I joined him over the overhang, and I looked up at about 400 feet of vertical climbing left. It was kind of a gully, a very, very, very steep gully, and we felt like that's gravy. We're done, basically. But what we didn't notice was that there were some big cumulus clouds forming, big black clouds, and then there was some lightning, and then some rain and sleet and hail, and those last 400 feet was now a waterfall or like a river just pouring down. And we were really well prepared. We were in shorts and t-shirts. Because we wanted to climb fast. We didn't really bring any gear with us, which often works until it doesn't. So we quickly lost body temperature and started to be very, very cold and very concerned for our lives. Hypothermia, exposure. Guys die up there every year. So we made the decision that we had to go down. We couldn't go up. Maybe I would have made another decision, like to wait to be rescued, but we thought we could easily die before anyone would find us there. So the problem was we couldn't go backward. There was no way to reverse the climb. So then the only thing we had to do was, really our only choice was to go down. Rappel down. A number of rope lengths. It's not a big deal if you know what's down there. But we didn't climb that way. We had no idea what was down there. And so it was my turn to go first. We got the rappel set, and I rappelled down. And as I got towards the end of my rope, literally hanging at the end of my rope, I wasn't finding a place to anchor, a place to create another belay. And I said, oh, this does not look good. So I start to move back and forth, swing just a little bit, and I see there's these two bolts in the rock. Someone before us had done the same thing and left these two bolts in the rock. I'm very happy and relieved, and I swing over and grab a hold of one. I'm holding the rope like this. There's a little ring on it, and it gives. It's not very good. It's called a spinner in climbing lingo, but it's all I have. So I clip into that bolt, and I sort of test it with a little of my weight, and then I clip into the other. There's two of them there. And then I'm like, okay, we'll see what happens. What else am I going to do? So I slowly ease myself off of the rope and onto the bolts, and they hold. That's good. Pull on the rope. 2 hard pulls was the message that Tom could come. And so Tom comes down the rope. He's rappelling down the rope, and he's happy, I can see. I can just see in his body language. We've been climbing for years. We could read each other like a book without saying a word. He's happy, happy, happy until he turns and he looks in my eyes. And he sees in my eyes and he knows something's not okay. And we see each other's souls. He slows way down. And I just look this way, and he looks at the spinning bolts, and we look back at each other. We know what it is. We're going to live or die here shortly. So slowly comes down and puts his weight on one of them and on the other, and there's a popping noise, like a ringing noise. We thought we were dead. I mean, that was it. But I actually know the story, because I'm here. I would have died. It's too far. No one falls 500 feet and survives. So we make it down that day, and we don't celebrate. No big party. We get drunk. We get drunk to numb, actually, the pain of seeing our lives so clearly hanging in the balance. And that's why I'm sharing this story with you this morning, because it encapsulates what the Jewish New Year is all about. Facing the fact that our lives are always, always, always hanging in the balance, whether we know it or not. For the ancient Israelites, it was about water. This was the time of year that they prayed for rain. You see, the Egyptians had the Nile, the Babylonians had the Tigris and the Euphrates, but there was no great body of water running through the Holy Land. They needed rain in the rainy season, or they starved. It's interesting. We have a little water anxiety ourselves. But we have a lot of other ways to get water. Water is only one of many concerns, In fact, what I want to say is the concern that we don't want to think about is the fact that stuff happens often without warning. Our lives are always hanging in the balance. The great American poet Billy Collins expresses this beautifully in a poem called Picnic Lightning, which is also the name of the book where this poem can be found. He writes, "It is possible to be struck by a meteor or a single-engine plane while reading in a chair at home. Safe drop from rooftops and flatten the odd pedestrian, mostly within the panels of comics, but still we know it is possible, as well as the flash of summer lightning, the thermos toppling over, spilling out on the grass. And we know the message can be delivered from within. The heart, no Valentine, decides to quit after lunch. The power shut off like a switch. Or a tiny dark ship is unmoored into the flow of the body's rivers, a brain, monastery defenseless on the shore. All our lives hang in the balance all the time. So unlike the secular New Year, which for most people or many people is a party, the Jewish New Year is a more somber time when we are called to face our mortality, the fragility of our lives, and renew our commitment to live a life as full as we can in the new year. Facing our finitude, fancy word means our finiteness, is tough, not much fun. And actually, usually it requires practice. And a word for the wise, you can only stare in the sun so long without losing your eyesight, a little at a time. But when you think about it, if you were to climb, say, Mount Everest, how about Mount Shasta? Would you just show up? No, you would prepare, you would work out. So the Jewish New Year and the time around it is a spiritual mountain, and we prepare before we show up. At least in the ideal. I wish everyone in the congregation I serve prepared. I know I prepare. We undertake what is called cheshbon hanefesh, Hebrew term. I'm going to use a little Hebrew. We're a tribal religion. We have a tribal language. I can't do my thing without using some Hebrew. Cheshbon hanefesh means an accounting of the soul, a time of introspection. And we look at things like our time, our money, our family, friends, our work, and where are we in all those things? So, for example, one of my colleagues, Margaret Holub, love her, she's up in Mendocino. She actually still uses a paper calendar. She's like in the 19th century. See, I'm in the 20th century, but Reverend Edward is in the 21st century. Like, I don't do Facebook. But she uses a paper calendar, and she actually gets a big piece of paper, and she graphs her time use from the year before. And she points out that no one at the end of their life says, I wish I would have worked more. But they might say, I wish I would have spent more time with my family and many other things. So she really plots out her time. I just did an audit of the family's finances, mine, and I had to confess to Laura, my wife, that I am the problem. It's true. I am the problem there. And so forth. We work on two axes, the vertical between us and God, however you want to understand God, and the horizontal between one human being and another. And according to Jewish tradition, anything between you and another person is your responsibility to work on. You can't get out of that one. The only way you get out of it, if you can't reach that person or they're no longer here, then you can bring that to God. But otherwise, anything between you and another person, this is the time. So 3 weeks, you want to enter the new year as clean as you can. You have 3 weeks to work on whatever you need to work on to clear the horizontal. And then we have special services that soften the heart called slichot. And we blow the shofar. That's this thing here. This is quite the ram's horn. They can be smaller than this. And the thing you need to know about this, the shofar was the early warning system of the ancient Israelites. If there was an invasion, an earthquake, the shofar was blown. Also, according to Torah, the Hebrew Bible, the shofar was heard resoundingly during the revelation of Mount Sinai when the Torah was given. So we blow the shofar. If I was a real rabbi, I would blow the shofar for you now. But actually, you don't want to hear me try. So thank God for YouTube. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. The shofar says, wake up! And no pushing the snooze button. The goal of this time of preparing, and the new year as well, the whole cycle actually, is teshuvah, which is often poorly translated as repentance. But really, if you look at the word, it's from the verb to return. And that's the better translation. Return, that's the goal. To come home to who we really are, manifestations of the divine. Our two traditions actually share that. Hebrew Bible says in Genesis that God created us B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. It doesn't say white men, by the way. It doesn't say heterosexual either, by the way. It says everyone, all people are created in God's image. And that's what we want to return to, being godly. The Hebrew word for sin is chet. You want to try that? Chet. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Now, chet means not sin, another poor translation. It means to miss the mark, like in archery. As we prepare for the new year, we seek to reorient or adjust our aim a little bit, to see our lives clearly, understand what is important, reorient in order to be awake, aware, and alive in the new year. So, for me, there are 3 questions that are very helpful in this process. And we're going to answer these questions or look at these questions together, and y'all are on the journey with me now as we prepare to go into the new year together. The questions are, where are we? Where are you? Are you where you want to be? Are you where you should be? How heavy are we? And not your weight, your emotional weight. How much emotional baggage are you schlepping around? And what are we grateful for? Those are the questions. Where are we? So in the book of Genesis, there's a couple creation stories. In the second one, Adam and Eve are in the garden, and Eve, thank God, eats of the forbidden fruit. Seriously, there's no life without knowledge of good and evil. Eve is a heroine in the story. We should be on our knees now and say, thank you, Eve. So Eve eats of the fruit. She eats of the fruit. In Judaism, we don't actually have original sin. But one of my great teachers said, well, that's because the Christians got it first. I don't know. I just know I know I'm very grateful to Eve. So Eve eats of the fruit. Adam does too, and for whatever reason, he feels ashamed. And God says something very strange. Ayeka, where are you? Ayeka, where are you? So let's just think about this for a second. God is the creator of the universe. Right now, there's only a little garden, 2 people. Does God need to know where Adam is? God knows where Adam is. The question's not for God, right? The question's for Adam. Adam, where are you? Are you where you ought to be? Are you where you want to be? So that's the question for us. And when your life's hanging in the balance, you want to be honest. And if you're not where you want to be, you want to make a change. So you all have probably heard of Alfred Nobel, the founder of the Nobel Prize system. But what you probably don't know is that he made his fortune in dynamite. He wasn't always so altruistic. He's long gone, but. So he made his fortune in dynamite, and unfortunately his brother died. And he went to read the obituary for his brother, and this is where he gets lucky. They wrote his instead. They must have had it in the can because he's a famous person, so they published the wrong obituary. So he thinks he's reading his brother's when he realizes actually he's reading his own obituary. You can imagine how that would feel, especially when he read that he would be known and remembered for the man who figured out how to kill more people than anyone else to date in the world. Where are you, Alfred? Are you where you want to be? No! Lucky for him, he could make a change. right? He could create this whole system of honoring the brilliant, best, brightest people in the world, the Nobel system. But we're not so lucky. So we need to think about it now and try to make a change if we're not where we want to be. Because whether we want to face it or not, our lives are always hanging in the balance. There is no time to lose. Related to where are we is the question, how much do we weigh? What's the impact of the emotional load we carry around all the time? Hard question, right? So I want to tell a personal story. A number of years ago, my father invited the whole family to Louisville, Kentucky, where we're from. Maybe 5 years ago, I want to say. He was not doing great, and he wanted the whole family to come home for Thanksgiving. It sounds really lovely as long as we checked our guns at the door. You know, I have a family that some would call blended, but I would say like blended in the blender. We don't get along as a family. And I was really not excited about this trip. I love my dad. May his memory be for a blessing. But I just thought he was crazy, and he was just, perpetuating this myth that we're a lovely family and we like each other when we really don't. Plus, I got to bring my wife, Laura, and our kids. So it wasn't a lot to look forward to. Good son I am. I sucked it up, and we flew to Cincinnati, rented a car, drove to Louisville, and here we were. We stayed with a good family friend, Judge Fitzgerald, also known as Fitz. Big, warm guy who's known me my whole life. He used to work for my dad. And he could see that I was not in a good mood. He knew me very well. He said, George, what's the matter? I said, what do you mean, what's the matter? This is going to suck. We don't like each other. Dad's living in a fantasy. I got my family here. How can you even ask me, Fitz? And Fitz says, George, there's a statute of limitations on family food and bad parenting. Get over it. Get over it. You know how much weight fell off my shoulders? I cried a river. Wasn't perfect, but no one killed anyone. And my dad had a lovely time, meant a lot to him. And I actually did walk away from almost all that I was schlepping around. I know it's not always easy, but it can be done. And this is the time, right now is the time to just put some of that baggage down and enter the new year lighter and healthier in so many ways. So the last question is, what are we grateful for? Now, this question only matters if you want to be happy. If you don't want to be happy, then don't worry about it. But if you want to be happy, you should know that happiness is married to gratitude. It's easy to be pessimistic. We look around and see so much wrong in the world. Middle Eastern turmoil, political gridlock. I mean, the presidential campaign season is so awful. I mean, that our country loves Trump is, I don't want to even do about that. And there's scary things. Climate change is scary. The drought is scary. Oi. Let's do that. Oi. And I would say, oy vey. Oy vey. So there's a lot of bad stuff out there. But what about right here, right now? How are we doing right here and right now? Yeah. That's the trick. That is the trick. Because happiness is all about being here now. My dad died. It'll be a year, 2 weeks. We had a conversation shortly before he died where I went on about my trouble and concern about whether I would be effective or not and what I was trying to accomplish. And he said, all you can do is do your best and trust that in the end, your good intentions will make a difference. And I responded, from your mouth to God's ear, Dad. And then he said, you know, that is my God. I really believe that in time, good will triumph over evil. Think about it. We've made so much progress. So much progress. This is a man who was dying, could hardly move, had 3 forms of cancer, organ failure. You get the picture. But yet, he found a way to be grateful and also to be happy in the midst of dying. The psalmists teach, Zeh Hayom Adonai. This is the day God has made. We shall rejoice and be glad in it. This day, right here and now. Not what happened in the past or what could happen in the future. Happiness arises in this moment when we can acknowledge and be grateful for what we have right now. So take a moment, close your eyes, and breathe. And find your blessings right here, right now. Ezehu Ashir, the Talmud asks, who is rich? One who is happy with what they have. That's our challenge as we enter the year, to recognize and be grateful for what we have right now. I miss rock climbing. The vertical world is stunning to behold. I miss my old buddies and comrades and the chevra, the good feeling we had together. Most of all, I miss how alive I felt at those moments on the edge, my life literally hanging in the balance. I don't miss the danger zones that these moments of clarity required. The story I told is one of many, certainly more benign than the time I fell 50 feet to the ground and almost died. Near-death experiences do have their place, but when we have a choice, we'd better to learn the lesson a safer way. And that is exactly what the Jewish New Year and Holy Day cycle is about. Facing the unsettling fact that, yes, all our lives, all the time, hang in the balance. And we don't control a lot, especially who shall live and who shall die. But we do decide moment by moment how we respond to what life we have. It's awesome to think about what we hold in our hands. No wonder this time of year is also called the Yamim Noraim, the days of awe. This is my blessing as we enter the new year, whatever your calendar. May it be a good, prosperous, healthy, meaningful, safe new year for us all. Shana Tova, Happy New Year. Thank you.